Ever feel like there's this invisible force kind of holding you back from reaching your full potential? Maybe you're starting something new, maybe you're hitting those roadblocks, or maybe you're just feeling stuck. Well, today we're diving into something that might shed some light on that. Ego. We're taking a deep dive into Ryan Holiday's Ego is the Enemy.
This book, it's not your typical self-help book. Holiday doesn't give you like a step-by-step plan to just kill your ego. It's more about using historical figures, even philosophical insights, to show how ego can really mess us up at different points in life, like whether we're aspiring, succeeding, or even failing.
And he's got some big names backing him up on this. People like Austin Kleon, Robert Greene, they've praised this book for its practical approach,
Yeah.
its insights into this tricky topic. So are you ready to see how ego might be playing a role in your own journey?
Absolutely. Let's jump into that aspire phase. That time when you're full of dreams, ambition. Holiday starts off with General William Tecumseh Sherman, a Civil War guy, really important. What's interesting about Sherman is how he chose to stay in supporting roles until he felt really ready for a command position.
It's almost like counterintuitive, right? You'd think someone with his ambition would want to jump right into leadership. But this kind of goes back to what Holiday calls strategic flexibility.
Exactly. Sherman, he got it. He understood that being truly prepared, that's more important than getting recognized right away. He focused more on doing the work, becoming capable, not just on being seen as the leader. Think about your own career. Are you maybe rushing for that promotion before you're truly ready? Or like Sherman, are you focusing on, mastering the basics first?
That's a great point. It's so easy to get caught up in wanting that title, the recognition, without putting in the work to actually be good in that role. Holiday contrasts Sherman with Upton Sinclair, though. His story shows the danger of what he calls premature celebration.
Sinclair, he was so sure he'd win this governorship that he started celebrating before the votes were even in.
And Arfa, he lost. It's like our minds can trick us, confusing visualization with actual progress. And that leads to complacency, and then motivation takes a hit.
That makes me think about all the times I've talked about my big plans, my goals. Almost like talking about it is the same as actually working on it. Ever caught yourself doing that?
Oh, all the time. It's easy to fall into that trap. We get caught up in this idea of being someone, the successful entrepreneur, the author, the expert. We forget about actually doing something. That's John Boyd's famous question, right? To be or to do? He was a military strategist, and he believed that focusing on being somebody, it could actually mess up our real purpose of actually doing something meaningful. It's a question worth thinking about. Where do you see this playing out in your own life?
It's a challenge, for sure. But one way to shift that focus from being to doing is with what Holiday calls the canvas strategy. He uses Benjamin Franklin as an example. Franklin, for years, wrote anonymously. He focused on making other people look good while he was getting better at his craft.
So instead of the spotlight, Franklin was working behind the scenes, mastering his skills, building trust, without, threatening those in power. Almost like those early experiences were his canvas, a place to practice and get better.
Exactly. And think about how this could apply to your life. Are there places where you can contribute, learn, grow without needing to take all the credit? It might feel weird in our culture of self-promotion, but serving others, working behind the scenes, it can be so valuable.
And on the topic of putting ego aside, Holiday shares the story of Jackie Robinson, the first black player in Major League Baseball. Imagine the pressure, the prejudice, but he rose above it.
Robinson got it. He understood. Integrating baseball, challenging that discrimination, it demanded a level of restraint very few people could manage. He was playing for something way bigger than himself, and that meant putting his ego aside.
His story makes you wonder, when is it worth putting up with unfair treatment for a bigger purpose? What do you think about that?
It's a tough one. There's no easy answer. It comes down to your values, your goals. What are you willing to sacrifice? Endure, even. And are those sacrifices, are they aligned with a purpose that truly means something to you? If the answer is yes, then maybe, like Robinson, you can find that strength to keep going even when things are really tough.
Let's shift to gears a bit. Let's talk about that success phase. Holiday compares the leadership styles of Dwight Eisenhower and John DeLorean, showing how disciplined systems and delegation are so important for lasting success.
Eisenhower, he thrived under pressure because he created systems that freed up his mind for strategic thinking. DeLorean, though, he had this more chaotic approach, and he ended up neglecting something crucial: disciplined execution. It reminds us that achieving a vision, it takes more than just great ideas. It needs the discipline to build systems, delegate, and not chase every new idea that pops up.
Like the difference between a visionary and a CEO,
Yeah.
right? You need both. The
Yeah.
big picture thinking and the skills to make it happen.
Absolutely. And then Holiday brings up this concept of sobriety, which is interesting. When we think of sobriety, we usually think about avoiding substances, right? But Holiday goes further. He's talking about keeping a clear head, avoiding the intoxicating effects of ego and power.
So it's not just what we put into our bodies, right? It's about that inner clarity, not getting too attached to the trappings of success. Think about a time when you were really excited about a project and opportunity. Did that excitement make you lose sight of the bigger picture? Or maybe overlook potential problems? That's what Holiday means by sobriety, keeping that clear head, even when things are really exciting.
It's hard, especially when success starts coming your way. The recognition, the praise, the rewards, they can be intoxicating. But those are the moments when we need to be most careful, to stay grounded in our values and not let those external validations define our self-worth.
Such a good point. Like, we need that inner compass, the ability to navigate success without letting it go to our heads. And maybe that's where internal metrics come in, which Holiday highlights in Katharine Graham's story. She took over the Washington Post in really challenging times, but she focused on internal metrics like maintaining journalistic integrity, serving the community. And that allowed her to persevere and ultimately succeed.
She didn't obsess over short-term profits or what people were saying. Graham focused on doing the right things, upholding the values that really mattered to her. It's like instead of worrying about social media likes, you focus on an internal metric like, how much more do I understand about this topic today than yesterday?
That's a great example. So what are some other internal metrics we could use to measure our progress and stay true to our values?
Well, it depends on your goals and values, right? But think about things like, how much time did you dedicate to a meaningful project today? Did you push yourself outside your comfort zone? Did you make a positive impact on someone's life? Those are the metrics that matter, the ones that can help you stay focused on what matters most, regardless of external noise or validation.
Love that. Shifting our focus from external validation to internal satisfaction.
And speaking of turning challenges into opportunities, Holiday shares the story of Malcolm X's transformation in prison. He didn't give in to despair. He turned that time into an opportunity for learning, for growth, turning dead time into a live time. It reminds us that our ability to grow isn't limited by our circumstances. Even in the toughest situations, we have a choice. We can let those circumstances define us, or we can find meaning and purpose, using them to fuel our growth and transformation.
So are there areas in your life where you're experiencing that dead time? Are there challenges, setbacks that are defining you, holding you back? How can you change your perspective? Turn those experiences into opportunities for learning, development, personal transformation.
It's a powerful question, and one we can all benefit from asking ourselves. Because honestly, every moment, every experience, it has the potential for growth. It's our choice how we respond, how we interpret those experiences, and how we use them to shape our lives, our journeys. Welcome back. So as we dig deeper into ego is the enemy, we're going to see how ego can show up in these really sneaky, even kind of insidious ways.
Like a chameleon, right?
Yeah.
Changing colors, adapting, always finding a new way to trip us up.
Yeah, exactly. And one example that Holiday uses, it's really compelling, is Howard Hughes. This guy, undeniably brilliant, visionary entrepreneur, aviator, but his success, it was all tangled up with this really destructive ego.
His story is almost a cautionary tale.
Yeah.
Like he had everything for success, but his ego, it just sabotaged him in the end. Turned his brilliance into suffering.
And it's not just that his ego was arrogant or, self-promoting. He became isolated, paranoid, obsessed with control. He withdrew from the world, neglected his own well-being.
Like his ego built this bubble around him, isolating him. No feedback, no reality, no real connection. And his genius, it became distorted, ambitions warped, legacy tarnished. What are some signs that our egos might be going down that same path?
That's the question, right? I think we got to be mindful of how we react to feedback, criticism. Are we getting defensive, resistant to new ideas, obsessed with micromanaging everything? Could be signs that our egos are taking over.
And what about isolation? Are we pulling away from relationships, meaningful connections, because we think we can do it all ourselves? Or maybe because we're afraid to be vulnerable? Show our imperfections.
Those are red flags for sure. Real growth, real success, it needs connection, collaboration, and a willingness to be open, vulnerable with others.
Speaking of growth, Holiday talks about keeping that student mindset, even when you're successful. He uses Kirk Hammett, the Metallica guitarist. Even after all his fame, recognition, Hammett sought out instruction from Joe Satriani.
Pretty humbling, right? You'd think at that level, you've made it. You don't need mentors anymore, but Hammett, he got it. True mastery, it's a lifelong thing, a journey. You never stop learning, never stop refining.
It's like that saying, the more you know, the more you realize you don't know. Learning never really ends. And when we stop being students, we stop growing.
Exactly. And ego can really get in the way of that. It tells us, you're good enough. You don't need to learn anymore. You've proven yourself. But that thinking, it just leads to stagnation, keeps us from reaching our potential, adapting to new challenges.
So how do we cultivate that student mindset? Are we actively looking for mentors? Engaging with challenging ideas, exposing ourselves to new perspectives. It can be uncomfortable, but it's essential.
Absolutely. It takes humility to admit we don't have all the answers, that we can learn something new, even from people we might think are less experienced.
And speaking of humility, Holiday warns against blindly following that find your passion mantra. He uses John Wooden as an example, the legendary UCLA coach. Wooden focused on a more disciplined approach, control, focus, commitment to the work, not just fleeting bursts of passion.
It's not that passion's not important. It's more about realizing that real passion, it often grows from hard work, dedication, pushing through challenges, refining your craft. It's not always this sudden, overwhelming thing.
Like the difference between infatuation and love, right? Infatuation is the spark, the intensity, but it fades. Love is built over time, through shared experiences, challenges, commitment.
Beautiful analogy. Same goes for passion. It's not just finding the spark, it's cultivating it through effort, practice, embracing the tough parts.
So if you're struggling to find your passion, maybe the key is to shift your focus. Instead of waiting for that lightning bolt, what if you ask yourself, what am I curious about? What skills do I want to build? What problems do I want to solve?
Great questions, because often it's through that process, exploring our curiosity, honing our skills, tackling those meaningful challenges, that we find what we're truly passionate about.
Holiday shares the story of Emily Gould. She got caught up in online self-promotion. Instead of focusing on writing, she was chasing validation, attention on social media.
That's a trap that's so easy to fall into, especially now. All these messages about personal branding, building a following, showing off our achievements, and using social media to connect, share our work, that's not bad in itself, but it can be a dangerous distraction.
Like we're performing for an invisible audience, always seeking validation through likes and shares and comments. And we lose sight of the real rewards of the work, the joy of creating, the satisfaction of mastering a skill, the fulfillment of actually making a difference.
It's all about balance, isn't it?
Yep.
Recognizing the good parts of social media without letting it distract us or inflate our egos.
So how do we find that balance? How do we use these platforms without letting them tell us what we're worth or distract us from our purpose?
I think it starts with our intentions. Why are we using social media? Are we connecting, sharing our work authentically? Or are we mostly looking for validation, attention?
It's like, don't compare your behind the scenes to someone else's highlight reel. Easy to feel inadequate when we see those curated images, stories online, but everyone's journey is different. Everyone has struggles, triumphs. Social media often just shows a distorted view of reality.
And if we're feeling envious, inadequate when we're on social media, maybe it's time to step back, disconnect for a bit, reconnect with our own values, priorities.
Sometimes we need that space, to reflect. Remind ourselves what really matters. Make sure the online noise isn't drowning out our own inner voice.
Absolutely. And speaking of serving a bigger purpose, Holiday brings up this concept of an antiambulo. It's from ancient Rome. These were people who would clear the path for their patrons, handling the details, freeing up their patrons to focus on their main pursuits.
So instead of climbing the ladder through ambition and self-promotion, the antiambulo focuses on serving others, making their lives easier, contributing to their success.
Exactly. And this challenges the idea that success is a zero-sum game. It says there's huge value in supporting, uplifting those around us, that by helping others succeed, we create a better path for ourselves.
Like shifting our thinking from what can I get to how can I contribute, recognizing that true success is often tied to the success of others. By supporting, uplifting them, we create a more fulfilling, impactful path for ourselves. Where do you see this playing out in your own life?
Mentorship is a great example. When we mentor someone, share our knowledge, experience, we're not just helping them, we're reinforcing our own understanding.
It's that saying, the best way to learn is to teach. And this goes beyond formal mentorship, offering a hand to a colleague, sharing resources, just being supportive, encouraging.
Exactly. We all have something to offer. We can all make a difference. By focusing on contribution, service, we enrich the lives of others and create a more meaningful path for ourselves.
Love that. We're all connected. Our success is tied to the success of others. And speaking of quiet, effective service, Holiday shares the example of Benjamin Franklin. He wrote anonymously for years, contributing to his brother's newspaper. No credit, no recognition.
This is what Holiday calls the canvas strategy. Might seem weird in our culture of self-promotion, branding. But Franklin, he understood. Working behind the scenes, honing his skills, making others look good, it was a powerful way to learn, build trust, without threatening those in power.
Like, he was using those early experiences as a training ground, refining his abilities, building a reputation without drawing too much attention to himself.
Exactly. And this strategy, it applies in so many areas. Starting out in your career, navigating a tough organization, working on a project together, there are often opportunities to use this canvas strategy.
So instead of always needing the spotlight, what are we focused on the work, on making a real contribution, letting our actions speak?
It's a powerful approach. It can lead to more sustainable, fulfilling success in the long run.
Holiday uses Bill Belichick to show the importance of patience, restraint. He was the coach of the New England Patriots, known for his meticulousness, his willingness to work hard behind the scenes, mastering the unglamorous parts of his craft.
Belichick's approach, it shows the power of embracing the process. He knew that true mastery, it needs a deep understanding of the basics, willingness to repeat, refine, commitment to excellence, even in the small stuff. It's not about quick wins, shortcuts. It's about putting in the work day after day, year after year, trusting that consistent effort will get you there.
It's like building a house, right? You can't just slap it together and expect it to last. You need a strong foundation, the right materials, attention to every detail. That takes time, patience, and a willingness to do the parts that aren't so glamorous.
Exactly. And that applies to success in any field. It's not about overnight sensations. It's the long game. Putting in the work, mastering the fundamentals, trusting that effort will pay off.
So how do we cultivate that patience, perseverance? How do we resist those shortcuts, quick wins, and embrace the process of mastery?
You got to recognize that success is rarely a straight line. There'll be setbacks, plateaus, times when you question everything. But those are the moments when you got to dig deep. Remember your commitment. Trust that consistent effort will get you where you want to be.
Holiday shares the story of General George B. McClellan, Union general in the Civil War. Brilliant strategist, but his ego got in the way. Prevented him from acting decisively. Cost the Union a lot.
Classic example of ego sabotaging even the most talented people. McClellan became so worried about his image, his reputation, that he lost sight of the mission, failed to execute the strategies that could have won the war.
It reminds us that leadership isn't about self-promotion. It's not about protecting your ego. It's about serving something bigger than yourself, putting the needs of the team, the mission, ahead of your own desires for recognition.
And that takes humility. Willingness to step back, listen, admit your limitations. True leadership isn't about being the smartest one in the room, having all the answers. It's about creating an environment where everyone can do their best, where ideas can grow, where everyone's intelligence contributes to success.
Holiday talks about Genghis Khan. Now, we think of him as a conqueror, right? Driven by power. But Holiday highlights a different side of him, his openness to new ideas, willingness to learn from other cultures.
It challenges the way we think of conquerors. As people who just impose their will, Khan knew that real strength is in adaptability, in absorbing new knowledge, integrating it into your own approach.
When in Rome, do as the Romans do. Khan knew to lead and conquer, he needed to understand his opponents, their strengths, weaknesses, learn from their cultures, adapt his strategies.
And that mindset, it's crucial for success in any field. You don't have all the answers. There's always more to learn. Real growth comes from embracing different ideas, being open to new perspectives.
So how do we cultivate that openness, that curiosity? Are we actively seeking new knowledge, engaging with different perspectives, challenging our own assumptions?
It's about being a student, being humble enough to realize we're all works in progress. There's always room to grow. True mastery comes from being willing to learn, refine our understanding of the world.
To emphasize staying grounded, connected to something bigger, Holiday shares the story of John Muir, naturalist, preservationist. He had this profound experience in the Alaskan wilderness, feeling awe, interconnectedness with nature, something that transcended his own ego.
Holiday calls this cosmic sympathy. It's a reminder that we're part of a larger tapestry, connected to something vast, awe-inspiring. That goes beyond our individual worries and ambitions.
Like when you look at the stars, you realize how small you are. And yet there's this sense of belonging, being part of something so much bigger.
And that perspective can be really grounding, especially when we're caught up in success, achievement. It reminds us that our accomplishments, they're important, but they're fleeting. Helps us stay humble, keep perspective, so ego doesn't inflate our sense of importance.
So how do we cultivate this cosmic sympathy? Do we all need to go on wilderness expeditions?
Not necessarily. Nature is a powerful way to connect with something bigger, but there are other ways. Explore art, music, literature, philosophy. Anything that expands your horizons, challenges you, reminds you of the beauty, complexity, mystery of the world.
Nurturing that childlike curiosity, that openness,
Yeah.
willingness to be amazed.
Exactly. And it's that awe, that wonder, that recognition of being connected to something bigger that helps us keep ego in check. It reminds us that our individual lives, they matter, but they're part of a much larger story.
Shifting gears now to leadership. Holiday compares Dwight Eisenhower and John DeLorean, highlighting the need for discipline systems, delegation, for real, lasting success.
Eisenhower, he was a master. Navigated World War II, the presidency. He knew how to create systems that empowered people. Delegated well. Freed up his mind for strategy. DeLorean, though, brilliant, visionary, he faltered because he was chaotic, ego-driven. He didn't focus on organization, disciplined execution.
Like the difference between a soloist and a conductor, right? Soloists might be super talented, but they can only do so much alone. Conductor brings everyone together, creates a symphony.
Great analogy. It shows that success, especially in leadership, is rarely a solo act. You need collaboration, delegation, empowering others.
Holiday talks about sobriety again, but this time through Angela Merkel. Her quiet, unassuming leadership. She prioritizes rationality, objectivity, clear-headed decision-making.
When we think sobriety, we think avoiding substances. But Holiday, he broadens it. It's about clarity, detachment from ego, power. Merkel, she stays grounded, avoids getting intoxicated by success, recognition. It's discipline, commitment to a larger purpose.
Like she's above it all,
Yeah.
sees the bigger picture, makes decisions based on logic, not getting swept up in ego, ambition. Real success isn't just external achievements. It's about inner balance, integrity, aligning with your values.
And this kind of sobriety, it's crucial for navigating leadership, success, without losing sight of what matters, staying connected to your values, principles, purpose, even when things get tough.
So how do we cultivate this sobriety? How do we stay grounded, focused in all the noise, distractions?
Create space for reflection. Meditation, journaling, nature, finding mentors who can give objective advice. Create that space to reflect, be self-aware, connect with something bigger. That can ground you, remind you what's important.
Creating that inner sanctuary where you can escape the noise and reconnect with your values, purpose, that quiet voice inside that guides you.
Exactly. And cultivate gratitude. Recognize, appreciate the good things, even when things are hard. Gratitude shifts your focus from what you lack to what you have, from scarcity to abundance. That change in perspective makes a huge difference.
Speaking of connecting with something bigger, Holiday tells the story of John Muir, the naturalist, preservationist, profound experience in the Alaskan wilderness, feeling oneness with nature, recognizing how everything's connected, beyond its own ego, his sense of self.
Cosmic sympathy, Holiday calls it. It's humbling. It reminds us we're part of something much bigger. Our accomplishments, our worries, they're fleeting in the grand scheme of things.
Like when you look at the stars, you realize how small you are. But there's awe, wonder, belonging to something vast, mysterious, beyond our understanding.
Exactly. And cultivating this cosmic sympathy, it's important for keeping ego in check, especially when we start thinking we're too important, letting our achievements go to our heads. It reminds us we're all part of something much bigger.
So how do we cultivate this cosmic sympathy? Do we all need to go to the wilderness?
Nature's powerful, but there are other ways. Art, music, literature, philosophy, anything that expands you, challenges you, reminds you of the beauty, complexity, mystery of the world.
Nurturing that curiosity, that openness.
Precisely. And it's that awe, that wonder, recognizing our connection to something bigger that keeps ego in check, reminds us that our individual lives, while important, are part of a much bigger story.
Holiday shares the story of General George C. Marshall. He played a huge role in the Allied victory in World War II. He was known for his humility, selflessness, his commitment to a greater cause.
Marshall, he repeatedly put aside his ambition, his ego for the greater good, declined promotions, avoided the spotlight, always put the mission, his troops, ahead of his own gain, recognition.
Amazing example of leadership. It's not about power, accolades. Marshall understood true leadership is about empowering others, inspiring collaboration, creating a culture of shared sacrifice, collective achievement.
And this kind of leadership, it's not just for war or politics. It applies anywhere people are working together. Real success isn't about one person winning. It's about expanding things, creating abundance, finding fulfillment, and helping others succeed.
As you lead teams, pursue your ventures, are you embracing this? Putting the needs of your team, the mission, the community first, putting aside ego, ambition for a greater purpose.
It's realizing that true leadership isn't about being the loudest, having all the answers. It's creating an environment where everyone can shine, where collaboration, respect are key, where the collective good comes before individual ego. It's leading with humility, integrity, commitment to something bigger. And that's what creates a lasting legacy. Not just achievements, but the positive impact you have on others.
Holiday tells a story about General Marshall sitting for a portrait. After patiently posing, he didn't even look at the painting, just walked away.
Small gesture, but it says a lot about him. He wasn't concerned with appearances, self-promotion. He was focused on the work, the mission, serving something bigger. Powerful lesson. True fulfillment isn't about external validation. It's that inner peace, knowing you did your best, made a difference.
Holiday then talks about Orson Welles and the backlash to Citizen Kane. Welles, brilliant filmmaker, faced so much criticism. Powerful people felt threatened by his work. But instead of getting caught up in the drama, the feuds, he focused on his craft, kept creating, expressing his vision.
It reminds us when we're doing something meaningful, challenging the status quo, will face resistance. Those are the times to stay true to your vision. Don't get dragged down by negativity. Focus on what matters.
You have to find that inner strength, resilience, stay focused. Don't get distracted by the noise, the drama. Remember why you started. Hold on to that vision.
Holiday shares a story about Frederick Douglass. He was a powerful voice for abolition, equality. Once, while traveling, he was treated horribly because of his race. A white supporter rushed to apologize. But Douglass, instead of being angry, he simply said it was those inflicting the injustice who were truly degraded, not himself.
Powerful example. Maintaining dignity, integrity in the face of hate. Douglass knew real strength isn't reacting to negativity with more negativity, it's rising above it. Refusing to let the actions of others take away your self-worth, your purpose.
When we face hate, negativity, we have a choice. Do we engage with that same energy, let it make us bitter, resentful? Or do we rise above, stay composed, refuse to let others define us, dim our light?
Hate is self-destructive. It hurts the hater more than the hated. By choosing love, compassion, focusing on our own strength, integrity, that's how we truly overcome negativity, make a positive impact.
Moving on to failure. Holiday talks about Katharine Graham's journey. Resilience, adaptability. Embracing challenges as chances to grow. She became the leader of the Washington Post in incredibly tough times. Skepticism, setbacks, obstacles.
What's inspiring is she didn't let those early setbacks define her. She understood failure is part of any meaningful journey. It's how you respond, your willingness to learn, adapt, that determines your success.
Like, fall down 7 times, get up 8. That's Graham. Resilience. Not letting setbacks stop her. She knew real strength wasn't avoiding failure, it was learning from it, growing, coming out stronger.
That mindset, it's crucial for all the challenges, setbacks we face. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's a stepping stone. A chance to learn, adapt, refine your approach, come out with a deeper understanding.
So how do we develop that growth mindset? How do we stop seeing setbacks as defeats and see them as opportunities?
We got to be honest with ourselves about our mistakes. Don't blame others, make excuses, own your failures, figure out what went wrong, learn from it.
Ask yourself, what can I learn? How can I use this to become stronger, wiser, more resilient?
And surround yourself with supportive people. People who encourage you to take risks, who help you get back up when you fall. Failure can be lonely. It's easy to get stuck in self-doubt. But having a good support system, friends, family, mentors, colleagues, that can make all the difference.
Holiday uses Malcolm X's transformation in prison to illustrate this. Instead of despair, bitterness, he chose learning, personal development, turned dead time into a live time.
It shows that our ability to grow isn't limited by our situation. Even when things are really tough, we have a choice. Do we let those circumstances define us? Or do we rise above, find meaning, purpose, use those challenges to grow, transform?
It's about recognizing that we always have a choice. We can choose how we respond, how we see things, even when we feel like we have no control. That inner strength, commitment to growth, that's what lets us turn even the hardest experiences into opportunities.
Malcolm X's story shows the power of the human spirit, transcending limitations, finding meaning in adversity, coming out of the darkness with renewed purpose, a commitment to making a difference. Even when we feel trapped, defeated, we have the power to choose our response, how we see things, how we use those experiences to shape our lives.
To illustrate focusing on doing the right thing, regardless of recognition or results, Holiday talks about Belisarius, brilliant Byzantine general. Won amazing victories, served his empire loyally, but in the end he was treated poorly with suspicion, even punishment, by the very leaders he served.
Life isn't always fair, right? Sometimes you do the right thing, work hard, achieve great things, and you still face opposition, betrayal, even punishment.
And it's in those moments, facing injustice, that our true character shines through. Do we become bitter, compromise our values for validation? Or do we stick to our principles, knowing that real fulfillment comes from doing what's right, not from recognition or rewards?
Belisarius chose the right path. He kept serving, even when he was treated unjustly. His story shows the power of integrity, sticking to your principles, finding satisfaction in doing the right thing, no matter what.
True success isn't about accolades, recognition. It's about living a life of purpose, meaning aligned with your values. It's about making a difference, even if nobody notices. It's about finding fulfillment in creating, contributing, serving something bigger than yourself.
To show how important it is to stay grounded, avoid getting too self-important, Holiday talks about the New England Patriots. They drafted Tom Brady, one of the greatest quarterbacks ever. But even with that success, they realized they had underestimated him. Their scouting reports missed things. Instead of celebrating, they focus on what they could learn, how to improve their process, how to keep striving for excellence.
Even with great success, there's always room to grow, improve. Don't get complacent, thinking you've got it all figured out. Embrace continuous learning.
That's where humility comes in. Acknowledging your limitations. Recognizing you don't know everything. Staying open to new ideas. It keeps you from getting stuck, attached to your own methods, even if they worked in the past.
Success is rarely a solo act. We all build on what came before us. We all benefit from the support, guidance, inspiration of others. It's important to acknowledge that, to be grateful. Our achievements are often the result of many people, not just us.
We're all connected. We all have something to learn from each other. By collaborating, being humble, we can achieve so much more together. And that brings us to the final chapter of our deep dive into Ego is the Enemy. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Back for the final chapter of our deep dive into Ego is the Enemy. As we wrap up, I'm really curious to hear your thoughts. What stuck with you? What really made you think?
I think what's hit me the most is just how sneaky ego can be. It's not always this big, in-your-face thing. It can be subtle, whispering doubts, tempting you with shortcuts, messing with how you see yourself, the world.
Yeah, it's a constant battle, right? You want to achieve, grow, make a difference. But there's this part of you holding you back, pulling you back into your comfort zone, self-doubt, fear of failing.
Exactly. And that's why Holiday's so focused on this idea of a sober mindset. Not just about substances, but about being clear, balanced, not getting caught up in ego and power.
So it's not just what you take in, but how you see things. Cultivating that inner stillness, stepping back from the emotions, impulses, making decisions from a grounded, rational place.
Exactly. That kind of sobriety is crucial. For all the ups and downs, whether it's success, failure, or just everyday challenges, building that inner strength, resilience, staying true to your values, your purpose, your vision, even when things get tough.
So how do we get that sober mindset? Any practices, habits to help us stay grounded, clear-headed?
Yeah.
When the storms hit,
Holiday talks about meditation, journaling, being in nature, finding mentors, advisors who can give you an outside perspective, creating space for reflection, self-awareness, connecting with something bigger to ground you, remind you what really matters.
creating that inner space, a sanctuary, where you can step away from the noise and reconnect with your values, your purpose,
Yeah.
that quiet voice inside.
Exactly. And gratitude. Recognizing, appreciating the good things, even when things are hard. Gratitude helps you shift your focus from what's missing to what you have, from scarcity to abundance. That change in perspective, it's huge.
Holiday brings back the story of John Muir, the naturalist, remember? He had that incredible experience in Alaska, feeling that oneness with nature, that everything's connected, beyond his own ego, his sense of self.
Cosmic sympathy, Holiday calls it, it's really humbling. Reminds us we're part of something so much bigger. Our worries, our accomplishments, they're small in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, like when you look at the stars, right? You feel tiny. But also this awe, this wonder. You belong to something vast, mysterious.
Exactly. And cultivating that cosmic sympathy, it's important to keep our egos in check, especially when we start feeling self-important, letting success go to our heads. We're all part of something much bigger.
So how do we get that sense of cosmic sympathy? Do we all need to go on a wilderness trek?
Nature's great for that, but there are other ways. Art, music, literature, philosophy, anything that expands you, challenges you, reminds you of the beauty, the complexity, the mystery of the world.
Keeping that sense of curiosity alive, that openness, being willing to be amazed.
Exactly. It's that awe, that wonder, realizing we're connected to something bigger. That's what helps us keep ego in check. It reminds us that our individual lives, they're important, but they're part of a much bigger story.
And as we wrap up our deep dive into Ego is the Enemy, it's important to remember something Holiday says throughout the book. True success isn't about fame, money, awards. It's not about status, recognition. It's about living with purpose, meaning, integrity. It's about using your talents to make a difference, even if no one ever knows.
It's about finding fulfillment in creating, contributing, serving something bigger, realizing that true satisfaction doesn't come from outside validation. It comes from that inner peace, knowing you've lived by your values, you've done your best, you've made a positive difference.
And that kind of success, the kind that goes beyond ego, beyond chasing validation, it's available to everyone, no matter your situation, your achievements. It's about focusing on what truly matters, using your gifts to make a difference, and finding fulfillment in the journey itself, not just the destination.
So going forward, remember what we've learned from Ego is the Enemy. Stay humble, stay curious, stay focused on what matters. May you find lasting success and fulfillment, living a life well lived.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. It's been fascinating. Hope you've gotten some valuable insights you can use in your own life.
It's been a pleasure. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and remember, ego is the enemy, but self-awareness, that's your best friend.